Human rights activist Maggie houwz spent her Olympics here in the mountains in the outskirts of Beijing. Under ordinary circumstances, this resort town is not a bad place to be during the dog days of August. But these are not ordinary times for Maggie or for other critics of the Chinese government. Before the Olympics, the government said demonstrators could hold protests in this and 2 other designated parks. But during the Olympics, it was life as usual in Ertan Park. The government said the vast majority of the 70-plus applicants amicably withdrew their application. Some would-be protesters were arrested. Maggie got an early warning about the potential dangers of applying. Back in May, police started issuing vague warnings she could expect unpleasant consequences if she spoke out during the games. That's how she ended up here.
I am in hiding, although it's kind of like a cat-mouse game.
The most recent round of the game began more than 2 months before the Olympics at Star Cafe. At the time, police were following her because U.S. officials were in Beijing to talk about human rights. Maggie had been promoting a global human rights torch relay aimed at drawing attention to China's human rights record during the Olympics. China didn't want the Harvard-educated activist to have any contact with the American officials. The police asked her to stay at home and get permission every time she wanted to go somewhere. Maggie asked to meet their bosses to ask about the legal basis of the order. They agreed to show up one evening at Star Coffee Shop. But after she arrived, she found it was a trap.
I was very relaxed. Suddenly, about 5 people brought me into the car waiting and right away put a hood over me and drove immediately to the detention place.
They kept her for 18 days.
I was not told who they were, who were the police, and nobody told me their names, nobody wear uniforms or wear a badge. And I was not told the location or the time, and I was sometimes not allowed to sleep properly. And sometimes
I talked with Maggie soon after she came out and went into hiding in the home of an American. She says she wasn't treated as badly as she had feared.
I thought I might be tortured. I was very wary.
She wasn't charged. When she was released, she says she signed a document saying she was no longer suspected of interfering with the Olympic Games or collaborating with foreign hostile forces. Since returning from Harvard in 2003, Maggie had taken on a lot of projects that irked the Chinese government. She founded a rights group and has helped farmers' efforts to impeach their local leaders suspected of corruption. She built a school for Tibetan street children who should have been in government schools. She has long been on the government watch list, but it was after being released from her 18 days in secret detention that she began to feel unnerved.
I was not that nervous when I was in the prison. I became somehow very nervous after that. The reason was because I found out I was spied upon.
While in prison, her jail keepers revealed they had snooped on her Skype conversations with contacts in America. Her American host's wife, a Chinese national, pressured her to leave. After a night sleeping outdoors, she arrived to stay at this safe haven with a friend of a friend.
Of course, it might create some risk for them, but they are willing to take that risk.
She still has tough Olympic decisions to make.
No. The toughest decision is whether to speak or not. Yeah, whether to openly criticize or not. Yeah.
She decided to speak to foreign media, but during the interview, her fear bubbled to the surface when a black car drove by.
I think this car is very suspicious. The woman really looked me hard. Well, what's the worst? I could be thrown to jail. I could be sentenced to some years of imprisonment. I could be kidnapped.
Had she not been in hiding, Maggie would have spent the Olympics being an advocate for other Chinese. Instead, she's working on her own case. After the Olympics, Maggie is considering suing the police for arbitrary detention. That is, provided she remains free. Police documents leaked to the international media said that after the Games, police have been ordered to prosecute Chinese who, during the Olympics, defamed their government in interviews with foreign correspondents.